I would like to take our time to introduce us. You should be, you're in the Iris Ombudsman session, and it's a communication session with the Iris Ombudsman of DVR and DRW. I'm sorry, there's too many acronyms, right? DRW and Board on Aging, and we'll introduce ourselves. So before we get started, we will do that. I'm Kathy Miller with the Board on Aging and Long-Term Care. And I'm an Iris Ombudsman for those over the age of 60. And I'm going to hand the mic off to my self-advocate. Come here. Robert is our director today. So when you will come on up, Robert, you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, my name is Robert Coor. I am from the, excuse me, sorry about that. I am from the Fox Valley area. I own my own house. I am a self-advocate. I was on the BD board.
And today you are our director with a fancy hat, and you want to show them what that does? What does that do? Action. So he's going to let us know when we have something to do. He's going to keep these ladies in line, right, Robert? Yeah. If you would like, you can have a seat right here and relax it while everybody introduces themselves, okay? All right. I'll hand this off to Kayla, my coworker.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kayla. I am an Iris Ombudsman with Kathy. We are from the Board on Aging Long-Term Care. We are the Iris advocates for those over the age of 60.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jean. I am an ombudsman with Disability Rights Wisconsin, and we help folks in the IRIS program that are ages 18 to 59.
Good morning. I'm Melissa, and I'm with Disability Rights Wisconsin, and I'm also coworker of Jean. So we do the same thing, and we work throughout the whole state. So you could get one of 13 of us on our team.
Thank you. So the first slide is up, and who are your facilitators? They just introduced themselves. So this is a very open communication type conversation because it's about communication. So this is not going to be a bunch of slides that you just have to take in. Okay. So it is full participation is welcomed. Okay. Are you in the right session? Are we all IRIS related? If family care, if it happened to be in you want the family care one is right next door. So so if you'd like to go add to that one, you can. What is the goal of our session? Just to learn from each other about how to ask for things that we need and in effective ways to do that. How will we get there? We're going to be doing some role playing, some scenarios. And I know the biggest question I get from Robert is, do I have to talk? And do I have to do anything? You can talk if you'd like. If your communication style is writing, there you should have some papers in front of you that you can write on the back. You can raise your hand and we can help you and assist. How will I remember all this stuff? That is a question that we got a lot last year. We have handouts for at the end. You can take this presentation, you can take a copy of it. And I believe Carrie handed out some papers that we'll be using throughout the day. Thank you, Carrie. So slide number 2. There you go, Jean.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about it. It is a service or a support that's necessary to support one of your long-term care outcomes. So those outcomes that you have on your plan are super important. So those need to be clear about what it is that you want and need. So I need it. So there's a difference between I want it and I need it, right? I mean, we don't always think so. We think if you want it, you need it. But Iris sees things a little bit differently. So when you're asking for something, you really need to be really clear about what it is. So for example, I have trouble organizing my paperwork, going through my mail, filling out forms. So what I need is someone to help me do those things. So when you're asking for that service, you want to be really specific about what it is that you're asking for and why you need it. So I want a rocket ship. Okay, why do I need a rocket ship? I don't really need a rocket ship. So when you're asking for something, you want to be, one, clear about what it is, two, clear about why you need it. What is it? How is it going to help you? What need is it going to meet for you? And then along with why you need it is how is it going to support that long-term care outcome? So as we know, everything in IRIS is tied to those long-term care outcomes. So again, going back to your plan, that's why those need to be really clear and specific on your plan, because everything that you ask for, whether or not it gets approved, is going to need to be tied to one of those long-term care outcomes. So like a rocket ship is not tied to one of my outcomes. That's not anything that's going to help me be more independent, or it would be really fun. Don't get me wrong, but it's not really tied to one of my outcomes. And then also, is it a covered service or support in the IRIS policy? So that's a good question for your IC, right? Like, here's what I'm thinking would be super helpful to me. Here's why I need it. Is this something that's covered? And your IC should be able to answer those questions for you as long as they know what it is that you're asking for. And again, being very specific with that request, and also specific about when you need it. Like, what's a good example? So I really want to take this class that starts on November 15th. So I need to know if it's approved prior to that. So again, being specific about what it is, why you need it, when you need it. So now we're going to do a little role play to kind of demonstrate. Well, actually, no, we're not. No, we're not. Kayla and Melissa are going to go through some more things about how to make that ask and what are the important things.
We'll start them out, would you?
Oh, okay.
Start the next slide. There you go.
Action.
Okay, so you want to be intentional. Don't just blurt out things to when your IC is visiting with you. You might be on the phone, you might be in person, you might be having a meeting coming up, but you want to be respectful and give them time to respond to you too.
You want to be a part of the team decision makers. So don't just be there, but be active, be present, be part of the conversation.
You want to be respectful and expect respect in return. So, you know, a good saying is you give what you get what you give. So you always want to be being nice to your consultant, because always getting no, it can be hard. And so, you know, sometimes you want to be angry and frustrated with them, but I think when you think about it in a better, sugar gets you a little bit more than spice. So if you're nicer about it, they tend to be a little bit more open to helping you.
So be ready to answer questions. We all know there's a lot of questions. When you think you've answered all the questions, there's going to be more questions. So remember, that's just part of the process. It's not that they are, being intentional or mean about it. They just really need to get through the process to make sure that they understand what you are really asking for. So it's not something that they're doing intentionally. It's just the process. So just keep that in mind.
Be emotionally prepared for the answer yes or no. You know, they have to go through their process, as she said. And once they reach the decision, then you will have the opportunity to explore other options if they have told you no. And so you just need to keep yourself composed and, not be so emotional about it, because that doesn't really help the situation. It kind of fuels the fire for them being, angry with you. So that's the best thing I would say, is just stay emotionally as composed as you can.
So, then what happens when the answer is no? The answer is no. So you need to know your rights. If the answer is no, then just make sure that you understand what the next steps are, because no is not always the end. You have rights after no.
Okay, so we're gonna do a little, Kayla and Melissa are gonna demonstrate what a meeting might look like. So Kayla is gonna be the Iris consultant, Melissa is gonna be the participant. So, of course, when you're at the table for these meetings, you can have whoever you want there. Yourself, your IC are going to be there, of course, but you can also have family members, support people with you, whoever you want at that meeting. You can even have an ombudsman at that meeting with you if you'd like. So in this case, Melissa is asking for, like I talked about before, that increase in supportive home care services to meet her unmet need of organizing, coordinating her mail, etc. Action.
All right, let's review your plan.
Okay. I would also like help with my mail.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just keep moving through this plan and then we'll talk about it at the end.
Well, I assume we would hear back by now, but you haven't heard anything. So this frustrates me. What do I do next?
So did that seem like a very successful ask? No, no. So maybe Melissa could have done a few things differently in the way that she asked. And maybe as the IC could have done a few things differently in the way that she was listening, or in this case, maybe not listening to what Melissa was asking for. So now we're going to go through the same thing again and maybe looking at some better ways to make that conversation successful.
All right, let's review your supportive home care plan.
Okay, I'm struggling to keep my bills and other things organized. I need help and support to get these tasks accomplished so that I know what I have and what I still need to gather.
Okay, that sounds great, but let's first go through your plan and your screen and review all the things that we need to first.
Okay, but let's be sure not to forget to come back to this.
Okay, that sounds good. We're gonna finish up here. Everything looks great. Moving on, and then yeah, everything's good.
Well, let's go back and talk about my assistance for mail.
Oh, that's right. Thank you for reminding me. I totally forgot. All right, can you tell me a little bit about that? And then once I get some information, then maybe we can take a look at that.
So I need help with making sure that my papers and things are organized so that when I'm asked for them, I can still provide them, and knowing where things are organized for me. I need help with sometimes monitoring my timesheets. I don't always have a good, sense of doing that. That confuses me, or I'm having a hard time comparing them. So I might need some help with that too.
That sounds great. So why don't we talk about it and then give us an idea of, what you're looking at, and then we'll talk about it and I'll get back to you by the end of the week as to how we can, get this included in your plan.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to pretend it's like Friday and I haven't heard anything. So I'm frustrated. Kayla hasn't returned my call and let me know. So now I'm going to reach out to her and ask for her to request that I get an answer so that I know if I can get some help with this. So Kayla, I'm going to call you. I'm going to call her.
Hello.
Hi, Kayla. It's Melissa, and I'm wondering if I can get some help with the request that I had made. You hadn't gotten back to me by Friday, so I'm wondering if you could help me with the answer for that decision.
Thank you so much for calling me. You are on my list to get to today. Your request was approved. You have 10 minutes 2 times a week for your mail, and we've added that to your plan. Does that sound great?
That's amazing. That will help so much.
So that second ask was a little better, right? Like, because she was specific about what she wanted, about why she wanted it, and she was able to follow up with the IC to get the answer that she was looking for, rather than just sitting back and waiting for an answer that might never come. So now we're going to talk a little bit about if that answer is no.
Okay, we'll leave it on this screen. You want to give me a cue, Robert?
Action.
I can't do it without him. I just can't do it. It's not always easy to hear the word no. How we choose to hear the word no and how we receive the word no is a choice. It's a choice that we can make. One choice is to lock horns and to fight with all you've got in an attempt to get the other one to back down. That choice rarely has a good outcome. Oftentimes someone ends up getting hurt with that scenario. Defensive posture is usually the first response when anybody hears the answer no. When you hear no, when somebody says no to you, don't you get a little bucked up and get your hair up and go, get a little aggravated? And that's our choice. That's our choice to receive that information that way. However, you want to give Jean a go ahead?
Action.
All right. So what we can do is kind of prepare ourselves ahead of time. So for maybe news that we don't want to hear, so that we don't become defensive. Because once you react with that anger or frustration, become defensive, that really kind of shuts down the entire conversation, because nobody wants to continue that conversation with that negativity out there. So, and that conversation is what needs to happen to get to a resolution, right? So strong emotions can make it difficult for the other person to hear or listen to what it is that you're asking for. So what we can do is practice, because it takes a lot of practice, but we can practice and learn how to control those emotions so that they don't control us, so that our emotions aren't controlling that conversation. So Kathy's going to tell us a little bit about how to do that.
So the Center for Nonviolent Communication provides many tools. It's free and it's online, and the resources on the last page of your takeaway when you take it. But it's tools for learning how to communicate in meaningful ways. One of the visions for this organization is that people attend to conflicts peacefully through dialogue and creative problem solving. And that's sort of what we're going to do as an activity next. And Kayla's going to lead us if Robert will give her the go ahead with an action.
Action.
Kayla, take it away.
All right, so we're going to talk about some compassionate communication skills. So being compassionate also means being kind. So there's kindness in that definition of compassion. So the first thing that we are going to do is observe. So observation. So you need to understand your own actions and beliefs and judgments, and you need to set them aside. As hard as it is, you have to set them aside and just observe. Feelings. Feelings are another part of that compassionate communication. Using I statements. The I statements are really important. When you start a conversation out with, I feel like, it's much better than saying, you did this. The you puts blame on that person and they get very defensive. So always remember, go back to those I statements. I feel. The needs, again, using those I statements. And then the last one is request. Request without demands. So we're putting this into practice. So we're going to observe what happened. Notice how you feel. Put those feelings aside. Try to remain calm. Use those I statements. And then what are your needs? Make sure there is a universal needs list that we do have up here. It's on the table now. Okay, so you can relate to, you can look at those if you'd like. There's a needs list. So you can look at that and see what needs are unmet. Your feelings, what is not there? And then do you have a request? If you would like and feel like you need that request, you need to ask, I need this because of that. So we're going to kind of put this into, oh, the universe.
When needs are met and when needs are not met, so that you describe feelings. And I think this table has a very so. No problem.
Yep. Perfect. All right. So I am going to go through an example here, and I am going to give you a not so good way to share your feelings. You aren't listening to me when I'm talking. That might not go so well. Somebody might feel very offended when you tell them you are. They get defensive. So a better way to do that is I feel ignored when you're typing on your computer and not listening to me. So using those I statements is really important. It makes the communication compassionate, which is what you want. So we're gonna ask you guys. Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
I feel like you are not listening to me. That is not the same as saying I feel ignored.
Right.
You say I feel like you are doing blah blah.
Right.
So keep that in mind. Don't put the word feel after the word I like. I think put the word like after the word I feel.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that comment. Yes. All right. So we are gonna ask. Oh, Melissa. No, we're gonna ask. All right. So we want to hear from you. We want you to make a statement for us. So when blank happened, I felt. So can anybody give us some feedback on that?
Does anybody have an example that they could use or would like to share? When this happened, it felt like this. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's good.
So we had a scenario recently where my son moved from an apartment to a little house. One of the barriers for that was a gas stove. So we went to the Iris consultant. We did a little bit of research. We found kind of an alarm that could go on the handle just to warn if the gas accidentally got left on. And it was an immediate no. And so I was like, okay, well, why? Like, how do we work through this or what, and the solution that was given was to go to, instead of this like 20 something dollar part, the solution was to go to the fire department and ask them for like this $300 thing. So we never really did get it explained to us why. And so of course, I felt frustrated. We just purchased it on our own. But yeah, I don't know. That was a very frustrating. So I feel like we don't always understand exactly what Iris's role is for us. So yeah, I don't know.
So a good tool of this in that situation would be to talk to the consultant and say, when you just say no, it makes me feel.
But there's so much turnover and stuff.
Right.
So yeah.
So what we're learning about today is actually how to change those conversations so they're not so frustrating for you, because they can change, but the conversation's a two-way street. So everybody has to learn compassionate communication in their everyday life. This goes to any more questions? Examples? Yes. I'm coming.
I'm sorry.
There you
About,
go.
compassionate talk. Compassion is cultural, right? So I wonder how many of these papers you have provide. I know I have a Spanish speaking, very beautiful consultant from Costa Rica. And how many of you use those consultants to actually review these forms and have a reading, not only in the translations, that there's a lot of competition, but to see how culturally it fits, and also about the importance to recruit and look and keep more people, not only that they speak Spanish, but that they understand the culture, because at this point, these are very difficult personal disclosing conversations. And even if you can say it in English, to be able to use your own language feels you empowered and more compelled to express what you are saying, because sometimes the strength of the words do not translate properly. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other thoughts? Comments? No? Okay. All right, Robert, will you give us an action?
Action.
So first thing you want to do is think, and you want to gather all the documentation and things that you think that you're going to need to provide to your consultant to provide evidence as to why you need this item that you're requesting. You want to be prepared to answer their questions, because they're going to have questions. They have to go through a process before they approve that. So you want to be prepared to answer questions and be as detailed as you can to help them understand why you need that product. Understand the right to appeal your decision in a grievance. So you have a right, if you're told no, to appeal that decision. You can need to want to also be practicing your compassionate communication when your request is denied. Request an appeal for a grievance. You can request an appeal for a grievance, which lets you be heard at the state fair hearing level. So at that point, you'll have time to gather any more documentation that you would need to submit for that grievance process. Research what you don't know. So for instance, if your IC is giving you some reasons, you should research those and have answers for them when they come back to you. Know your long-term outcomes. You always want to try and tie whatever your needs are to your outcomes, because that's going to make it easier for the IC to understand your needs. So you want to make sure that if it's in your long-term functional screen, you can tie that to something. It makes it easier to and more practical for them. I think it varies. Sometimes you get a notice of action that, for instance, like you ask for a budget amendment and it goes to DHS, they come back and they say, no, we're not going to give you a budget amendment. You'll get a notice of action then for that. Sometimes they do verbal, like for instance, if they're reducing your budget because your functional screen, you say your screen hasn't changed, but your budget reduced, you won't get a notice of action for that. So they're going to talk to you about reducing things on your budget. And then you can ask for a BA for those items that may be reduced, and then you'll get a notice of action. You want to elaborate on that?
That depends. Yes, sometimes you will get a notice of action, sometimes you won't.
If you don't ask for one.
But yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, yes.
That gives you the right to appeal it then. Then you can take it to a state fair hearing.
No, it doesn't automatically mean that they will.
You should though.
Right.
You should. If you are getting a no, you should be getting a notice of action. If you're not getting one, you can request one.
So why don't they follow through and give you one if they say no?
That we cannot answer. We can't answer. And I saw a question over here. Go ahead.
It's not a question, I'm sorry. I am an IC, and in the back of your manual, it has that information to contact the ombuds, or if you want to put in a grievance or complaint.
Okay, anybody else? Oh, we got one back here, ladies.
Hi, I work for an Iris agency. If we cut anything out of your budget, if a budget, you get an NOA. If they're not working on a BA, you do get an NOA. So you should get that. Yes, absolutely. And I have also had people who ask for things that are a little unusual, and I have to tell them, well, it's, no. And I'll tell you what it was. It was something like a light that kills germs, but it was super duper expensive. It wasn't just like a $100 item. It was like, I don't know, 15,000. And the guy did have immune problems, so I get it. But I said, this is never going to pass. It's not going to get through. I've talked it over with my supervisor. And I did offer to do an NOA with him if he wanted to take it higher, if he wanted to have a review. So,
Well, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, because that is their right. No matter what the price is, it's complicated for sure. But they do have the right to have it in writing as to why there is a simple no. Oh, yes, ma'am.
You mentioned earlier that if your functional screen has not changed, but your budget has been reduced, how does that happen? I thought if your functional screen didn't change, your budget wouldn't change. Is that true?
That's a whole higher level if you want to stay around after the session. That we can explain it. That's universal across the spectrum. That's not just one individual. So that is a side conversation we can have. Okay, here you go.
Yeah, when you find that answer, let me know too, because I'm an Irish consultant. I'm still trying to figure that out myself. So first of all, I want to start like the no shouldn't be the go-to word right away. It's always what other options are there available to meet this need, right? Does it meet the need of the outcome on the plan? So if there is something that you want and you don't get it, or you want to get it and we can't get it for you, because no usually doesn't come from the Iris consultant, it comes from DHS. Because I would say, I agree with you. Let's pursue this and then have DHS. Then we look at other options if DHS says no. So it should always be a focus on what are the other options to meet that need besides just no. And if no is coming your way because of either the cost of something or it doesn't meet a need, then usually it's coming from someone else, not us. And if there's not an NOA, then I would ask your IC, I want a notice of action on this ASAP, because that's been the go-to now. Once anything's cut from your plan or anything's touched from your plan that's not agreed upon, you should be receiving an NOA.
Thank you. We'll get, okay. Okay. Kevin had a question? Oh. Yes. Were you done?
So just because you get a no and maybe you don't receive a notice of action, that doesn't mean your rights are any different. With or without a notice of action, your rights are still the same. So just keep that in mind.
Right.
And I was just thinking of an example of a no that you potentially got and didn't get a notice of action. I think that potentially happens when you're doing what we talked. So the answer initially was that's probably not something that would be authorized, but what else can we do? Right? And you agreed at the table to try an additional service. So it wasn't an automatic perfect no.
Right.
It's we're gonna try these other things first, because as a consultant, my job is to paint a really clear picture of why those other things might not have worked, and you try them. So I always tell people, this might feel like a no, but it's we have to try the less expensive. Right? First, we have to try the less either expensive or invasive or any of those things first, and show that.
And that's where the documentation part comes in. So you're gonna be documenting things that you've tried and don't work. You're gonna have, say, your medical provider or your occupational therapist or your PT. All those people will help you provide that documentation you need for whatever it is you're looking for. Next is your benefits, understanding your benefits in family care and IRIS. Ask for help. Engage others for help. If you don't understand what is being said to you, you can ask them to explain it a different way. You can ask as many questions as you need to get the answers so that you understand the process and what's happening. And you have that right to, you are part of the team, so you have that right. Communication, practice good communication. Make sure that you're being respectful and mindful of what you're saying, because again, you don't want to get the IC or the person that you're asking to be defensive. You want them to be on your side. You want them to understand why you need this item. Yeah. Okay, so the IRIS denial process. You should get a notice of action. That would be the first step. Then you should contact an ombudsman if you need help, either the BOLTEC or the disability rights ombudsmans, depending on which age group you fall in. That's all should be on your notice of action too, our numbers, how to reach out to us. Requesting a state fair hearing. So there's a document that needs to be filled out and sent in to the hearing and divisions. Then you would get a letter in the mail stating the date and time of your appeal. And sometimes you have to request that they're postponed because you're not prepared. Sometimes they're quicker than you're expecting. Sometimes when you do call one of us, we don't have all the information we need to be ready to represent at that first hearing maybe. So then we may be asking that you have to postpone in order to gather enough documentation so that we can provide the education, and help that you'll need. Plan strategies possible for a resolution. Informal resolution. Sometimes while you're working through the process of going to a state fair hearing, you're still continuing to negotiate with your IRIS consultant and the people on your team, still trying to gather that information, still trying to make them understand why this is important for you. And then last is the state fair hearing. And that's usually, they're always done on the phone, and you can have whoever you want with you for those hearings.
Any questions about that process?
So I want to add that as part of your state fair hearing request, if it's a reduction in services, you do have a right to ask for a continuation of those services until the state fair hearing. But that has to be in writing. 10 days.
Other questions about that appeal process?
How long does it typically take?
How long does it take to get an answer from the judge? Generally they say up to 3 months. So you don't, at the time of the hearing, you don't get an answer from the judge that day at the hearing. Some judges are quicker than other writing their decision, but generally within 3 months, you'll get an answer. And if you've requested a continuation of benefits, that will continue through that whole decision process until that decision is issued. Any other questions about the appeal process? Okay. Oh.
This is not exactly about the appeal process, but it's something that's always confused me. If you have a granted budget amendment in 1 year, do you have to reapply for that in the next year? Because like say you had were granted something to go to a health club and something you wanted to continue doing because it's been helping you, do you have to reapply for the budget amendment?
Are there any ICA folks in the room that want to answer that?
So what the ICs have the ability to do is called a budget amendment annual verification, which means it's making sure the need is still there, making sure you have to go through, the goals are still there. You're meeting your goal and outcome. And there's a form we fill out for the annual verification for that. Now, budget amendment funds can't be used for anything else though. Oh, if your budget goes up, the budget amendment should come down accordingly because you don't have that same need. But I saw you shaking your head, yes. And there are time limited budget amendments. Sometimes we're DHS, this is good for 3 months, this is good for a year, and we do have to go through the process. But probably more for like adult family home situations, we're seeing that more. And some supportive home care, daily living skills type things.
Thank you. Okay.
Did you have a question? Oh, okay, sorry. Well, we're right on time and we have 2 things left to do. And with this slide, let you know, we're going to do one of these questions together. So it's the outcome is, we thought we'd bring it close to home with it being the SD conference. The outcome on a plan is to be a better self-advocate in my community. We all want to do that, don't we, Robert? Okay. I want to attend the Dells for 2 days and 3 nights to attend the self-determination conference. I will need what? So we're going to do this together with the help of Kayla and Melissa. We're going to do this together, and I'm going to put slides back up for reference of how we can do this. using the skills that we just learned. So Kayla and,
So,
wait, Dean, would you mind writing what they come up with?
so raise your hands and we'll bring the microphone to you.
Just a scenario.
Meaning like, what do you need to start the process? Like, how do I make this ask?
Let's go back to that compassionate communication. How do we ask for this? So the question you want to ask is, I want to attend the Dells for 2 days, 3 nights for the self-direction or determination conference. What are you going to ask? Come on, I know you got something in mind.
Somebody asked for help.
A lo que yo sé, creo que se tiene que poner a decirle a su consultora que lo ponga en el plan para que ya esté activo cuando se necesite.
What I know that it needs to be done is that you have to talk to your consultant and you have to tell your consultant that you want it in your plan with enough time. So when it is in the plan, then it's there to get ready.
The fact that the enough time, that's really key. That is fantastic. Because sometimes if you don't ask in time, the time might be passed and we know once it's passed and it's paid for, we can't go back, right? So that's great comment.
Anybody else have comments? What else do you need to do?
I want to attend the conference, but my caregiver needs to come with me.
Great one.
Like, if you know about it like 3 months ahead, plan ahead, ask your caregiver. That way they know that you they can actually help you and reach out to they need to, or like the conference, or get or even helping you get the scholarship. So you get the discount on the hotel and the other stuff. And that would help the BD staff and the people putting that stuff together. I do thank you.
How am I going to get to the conference?
Exactly. Transportation. Not everybody has their own vehicle, right?
And it depends on the situation, because in my case, I need to make sure that the hotel room is accessible, or that I have accommodations to make it accessible.
Exactly.
What interpreter services are available? Because I mean Spanish, yeah, but what if I speak Arabic or Somali or it's one special language and that's needed?
Anybody else?
Oh, sorry. Why do you want to attend the conference?
would we ask for it? Anybody have an idea?
So he had a good point over here. You want to tie it to those outcomes.
Yeah.
I want to learn to be a self-advocate, so.
What if the answer comes back like, okay, we're approving your registration fee for the conference and we're approving the hotel, but the transportation is denied. Now what?
Anybody? Oh, sorry.
I can just say, see if another group is going or another agency, or see if your friend wants to come along, then just kind of be there as a chaperone. That way he can go do his other thing. That way the other person attending the conference can do what he needs to do, and yet still get a ride home.
Anybody else?
I've heard, I don't know exactly how that works, but I've heard that when you do like accessible cab services, that they give you vouchers to for transportation to go to certain places.
Yeah, there is vouchers, I believe. I just don't know, like, I've been hearing there's been some issues with transportation between like different counties. So there might be an issue with that if you're crossing different counties.
Yo sé de, bueno, de dos cosas. Una es acercarse en agencias benéficas que apoyan a personas con discapacidad dentro de su área para que así pueda encontrar una transportación. Otra sería hablar con su consultora que le pague las millas y así podría buscar a alguien que tenga carro y que lo traiga y pues ya le paga las millas también.
So there are two different things. One of them would be finding out from an agency who supports people with disabilities in the area who could support with transportation. And the other thing would be talking to your consultant about having mileage paid so that then you could find a person who would also be able to help to drive.
Anyone else?
Sorry.
That's okay.
I don't know. Some of the ICs here probably know, but I think that there's some rules about it wouldn't be an Iris consultant necessarily saying no, but they have to be real clear about what Iris covers and what they can and what they can't. I do think there's something to do with hotel. Do we pay for hotel? I don't think so.
Iris will pay for the participant hired worker or caregiver's hotel room expenses. They will not pay for the participant's hotel.
Well, yeah, Kevin already responded, but I think it's just understanding that, you know, the long-term care programs don't pay for room and board. So that's why. So for the person, they can't cover it. But if you need somebody to come with you to attend, then it's paid for them.
So that might be the option, like you're applying for that grant that Robert was talking about for your room and board then.
Okay, so the slide that's up is the compassionate communication. We have a few minutes where this is only 3 minutes, guys, and then we can get to the survey. So this is just a yell out and blurt. So if I wanted to go to the SD conference, right, or here, what would my observation be? The observation is make sure that you have the facts. The fact is next October, there's going to be a SD conference that I want to attend, that I would like to attend because I want to learn how to be a good self-advocate. Right, Robert? Give me some action, would you, Robert? All right. So how would one feel? If you can look at your cheat list on the table if you want, but if I was preparing for next year's SD conference, how would that make me feel? When I'm just thinking about going, I would feel, what kind of feeling? Yes.
Put in your.
Would, how would you feel?
Put
What?
it in your budget to like help you go to the conference.
Cool. Would you feel excited?
I will actually feel excited or maybe happier. First person help you fill that out to put that in your RRP or whatever it is, or your report.
Would anybody feel excited? Let's pick another one. What else would we feel? We know we have to ask for a hotel room or would we feel sad about going? No. Would you feel overwhelmed about having to ask? No. Yeah, you know back there. What's some of the feelings you might feel? I would be energized. Would you? I'd be energetic. I would be happy. I would be excited. Any other feelings? So because that's the feelings, you would have to put the I statement in a need. You would communicate with your consultant and your family, I need what? So you need transportation. We already talked about it. What's up there on the list? We would need transportation. I would need dollars for my caregiver. I would do all of that. And then and that's your underlining needs. And then you could make a request. So some hints for making the request was back here. Let me get it again. What were some of our hints that Melissa gave us on how to make the request? Let me see here. Be intentional, be part of the team of decision, be respectful. So you would talk with people who support you into coming up with that request so that you can portray that request and let them know your excitement and your feelings. So it's those 4 steps that sort of help you remember what exactly you can do. So now, that was a pretty painless last 3 minutes. Any comments before we do the survey? Because if our room moderator would hand out the survey cards, we're going to do the surveys together. So they're part of as okay, do that. Huh?
I'll take them with you.
So we're going to fill out your survey. We're going to do that together. Okay. Okay, we're going to fill out the survey together, Robert. Go ahead, give us action.
Thank you for coming.
There you go. Okay. I'll get it. Oops, wait a minute. Okay. So about the survey, what our a session today. You want to take this one, Jean? What our session was about today was basically how to communicate. So why is it important that we fill out these surveys? Is it really communicates to the leaders of the SD conference what your needs are. So we get to practice what we just did. So whether or not the feedback is positive, negative, or maybe constructive, how we give feedback. We really need feedback up here. Do you need feedback?
Absolutely. So feel free to write on those cards. Give us your notes, give us your thoughts, your I statements. Put it all on those cards. Feedback is fantastic.
And try practicing using some of those skills that we talked about today to get that thought across. If there's something that you want to ask for next year, either from the conference as a whole or specifically from our ombudsman program, if there's something that you want to know more about, think about how to put that ask on the back of that card. And raise your hand if you need any help with any of that.